Besides BMX and skateboards, Shred reported on music. The music was mostly loud and fast, thrash metal du jour. Now, rather than concentrating on big names like Metallica, Bad Brains, and Crumbsuckers, Shred worked with local bands. We became a bit of a clearinghouse for news about band comings and goings. Shred even expanded to include a very minor recording label. Vic ran the whole recording operation, which was pretty impressive considering that a year earlier it was impossible to get him to even clean his own room. I helped where I could and was happy that none of the kids thought I should just get lost. Vic also played in several of the bands, Socially Incorrect, Inner Strength, and Beyond. I got him a summer job at Reuters so that he could purchase his own equipment. He worked exactly long enough to finance the deal he wanted. Next time he needed money, he got his own job working for a bakery with his friend Dom. With that money, he bought a beat-up 1973 Dodge Dart that featured rusted-out floorboards and a loose starter motor. I found out about the starter motor because I had to go to Connecticut and Manhattan at 2 a.m. to rescue him and his friends when the beast wouldn't turn over. I had enough of that pain and bought him a Yugo. Laugh if you will, but it was a huge improvement. From the early days, we encouraged Vic's interest in music. We had a 66-key upright piano, and he took lessons in classical music for years. He was a talented performer. I had 2 guitars, one Spanish classical that my father gave me when I was 17, and a purple electric Gibson, a Les Paul Studio. The amp was a little gorilla that couldn't do justice to the guitar, but was loud enough. Vic took possession of the electric. He and his friends spent hours in his room playing along with records. I showed Vic a few basic chords, but he was essentially self-taught. I was impressed at how well he was able to duplicate the guitar solos of artists like Metallica and Led Zeppelin. His interest, however, seemed to lie more in the punk vein, which required much less musical skill to duplicate. Vic and his friends advanced their level of musical adventure by forming bands of their own. They picked ridiculous names like Socially Incorrect, Bloody Uterus, Cigar Stomper. As Vic's taste changed, he moved through and copied Bad Brains, Cro-Mags, Agnostic Front, and Youth of Today. The bands he played in became more and more sophisticated. The bands formed and dissolved more rapidly than I could track, so I gave up. I think Vic liked that. There were about a dozen kids who swapped in and out of the bands, with Tom Capone, Kevin Egan, and Alan Cage being the brighter lights. Vic was invited to join Beyond as the bass player. Beyond was the most accomplished of these formative bands. Beyond ended up recording an LP, and to this day occasionally play a reunion gig. Vic used a borrowed bass, so I surprised him one day with the gift of the new Takamine white bass. Beautiful instrument. Apparently, though, I should have consulted with him first, as my choice of instrument didn't really match his needs. He didn't like the guitar. He said it because it reminded him of Gene Simmons from Kiss. Okay, so maybe he was right. Besides, he really wanted to play lead guitar, and so why bother with the bass? I was hurt that my gift was rejected. I returned the Takamine and got him a white BC Rich bitch. I recognized that he was now making his own decisions. Dad's ideas are great as long as they line up with his. Vic's bands moved up from playing at local parties for free to paying gigs. On Long Island, the Right Track Inn, which sure doesn't sound like a punk or hardcore haven, used to put on shows. They were big enough that some of the acts actually had tapes and sometimes records to sell. Vic got to know several of the performers, and soon Beyond was playing at the Anthrax in Connecticut, even at CBGB's Sunday Hardcore Matinee. To me, this is quite an accomplishment because despite the place being a flea bag in a hellhole, it was on the map and real. The biggest bands of the genre aspired to play there. Even though I wasn't a big fan of the musical style, I was impressed with Vic's accomplishments. I went to a show with Vic, probably at the Right Track Inn. It was an all-ages venue that served drinks. When entering, the attendant would determine your age, and if underage for drinking, mark a huge X on the back of your right hand with an indelible black magic marker. At once ugly and elegant, Straightedge adopted the symbol as theirs, even denoting themselves as SXE. A hardcore music show is something that few adults had experienced. Now, I've been to plenty of concerts in my day, from intimate blues with Muddy Waters to stadiums packed by Jefferson Airplane, so I thought nothing would surprise me. I was wrong. The hardcore audience was mostly male. There were lots of bands and the evening lasted hours. Much of the time was spent tearing down one band's equipment and setting up the next. The actual performances were usually short and furious. 30 minutes was a long set. The singer would usually rant about something that was on his mind when he wrote the song, and then launch into a screaming frenzy. The music was extremely loud, with very simple chord sets pounded out over and over. The rhythm would veer off into either breakneck or chugging. During the breakneck pace, the mosh pit would erupt with action. Now, the mosh pit was an imaginary zone directly in front of the stage where the biggest and baddest would dance by slamming their bodies together. This ritualized fighting was called slam dancing. The goal appeared to be to clear the largest floor space in the least time. The bad guys, often skinheads, were for real, and posers were gladly eaten alive. Avoid the mosh pit unless you know what you're doing. Now, I never understood a single lyric as was being sung, even after attending a dozen or more shows. During the chorus, the singer would often point the microphone to the crowd, who obviously did know every word. The clubs were small, packed, and so warm in the evening, very hot. I'd sweat just standing there. A hardcore show was hard work for everyone. I never figured out whether it was particular songs, certain words, or music that triggered stage diving, but pretty much every set included some stage diving by the patrons or the performers. The clubs were small and the stage was not imposing like they used to, but usually on a foot or two above the ground. Security was lax, and on a good day, it was very easy to get around behind the performers as long as space permitted. Thus primed, at the proper moment, the stage diver took a few quick steps to the front of the stage, twist, and launched themselves back first on top of the packed crowd. The crowd was aware of the dive, and would hold the diver up above them, slowly shunting him off to the sidelines. Think of a beach ball floating above the crowd as a baseball game. Now change the ball to a guy, jam the crowd into a tiny room, raise the temperature 20 degrees, and the sound level 20 decibels. That's a hardcore.